coming in is the worst era of Nickelodeon. I don't know how this gets any worse than Ariana Grande pouring water on her face like this, or the whole Dan Schneider area of him just loving feet. I really don't. Of course you see feet. That's true. That's true. So let's see what's up. Rugrats. Yeah, I was never a Rugrats fan. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought that show was nonsensical. Like, I just didn't see the hype behind it. Rugrats. I just wasn't a fan of Nickelodeon, dude. Rugrats, Hey Arnold. It just was, they didn't drop bops like that. I think the only Nickelodeon shows that really got me every time were Danny Phantom, Timmy Turner, or Fairly Odd Parents, and maybe Jimmy Neutron here and there, but like even that was just okay to me. I was more of a Cartoon Network, Disney Channel type of guy as well.
Nickelodeon has been loved by all ages for decades. Since releasing the first 3 Nicktoons in the early 90s, Nickelodeon has become known as a predominantly cartoon channel. The 90s are revered as the golden age of cartoons, then the 2000s being a noteworthy successor.
Yeah, Avatar,
it definitely started to falter as time went on. The next era, being the 2010s, is arguably the worst era, and I am here to tell you why. But first, a little bit of backstory. In the early 90s, they introduced Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy Show. These 3 would become the first Nicktoons. They proved to be very popular, thus Nickelodeon choosing a cartoon-oriented path. Rocko's Modern Life, Cat Dog, Angry Beavers, Our Real Monsters, Hey Arnold, and the Wild Thornberrys were soon to follow. All of these cartoons were very successful and still remain icons today. They were original and wacky, and had humor that hadn't been seen in cartoons before. These cartoons made up the 90s, and is now known as the Golden Era. The next era was the SpongeBob Era. SpongeBob was and still is their cash cow.
Yeah, we know.
So, a lot of their focus went to SpongeBob. The entirety of the 2000s was plastered with the yellow square. Even with SpongeBob's success, there were a handful of cartoons that came out around this time that were still very good. The Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, Danny Phantom, Invader Zim, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Avatar.
I forgot My Life as a Teenage Robot was a fucking Nickelodeon show. I always thought it was a Cartoon Network show for some reason. But
Neutron, Danny Phantom, Invader Zim, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Avatar, and Chalk Zone. The first half of the 2000s was basically a sequel to the 90s. Original cartoons, unique concepts and adventures, and very enjoyable to watch. The second half of the 2000s is where the decline began, but had not fully hit rock bottom. The shows they were making didn't necessarily drop in quality, but a lack in promotion and opportunity led them to fail. These shows were for the most part overshadowed by their more successful cousins like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents. These shows were Tak and the Power of Juju, El Tigre, The Mighty Bee, Cat Scratch, Odd Parents. These shows were Tak and the Power of Juju, El Tigre.
I feel like I've heard of El Tigre. This is not Mucho Lucho, is it? Or Mucha Lucha? Those are 2 different shows? I don't think this is Mucha Lucha. I don't know if y'all know Mucha Lucha, but that was a good show.
The Mighty Bee, Cat Scratch, The X's, and Back at the Barnyard. Nickelodeon didn't really seem to give these shows a chance, and really only promoted the big shows that they knew would perform well. In the last year of the 2000s, a show would be released that I think truly begins the descent into the worst era. Fanboy and Chum Chum. I know this dead horse has been beaten so much it's just pulp now.
What is it?
It's trendy to hate on this show, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm simply bringing up the point that this show relied heavily on poop humor. I'm not criticizing it, but it does set in motion a domino effect of terrible humor. I am now going...
Just that animation is shitty, though. Honestly, fuck this show. Like, the animation just looks... I don't like this animation style. I really don't.
I'm going to give an overview of all the Nicktoons during this decade. 17 different Nicktoons premiered in this decade, compared to 11 in the 90s and 17 in the 2000s. For the sake of the argument, I'm going to only go over actual Nicktoons, not every single animated show that aired this decade. So, for shows like Rabbids Invasion, that most certainly helps my argument, will not be talked about, as it is not categorized as a Nicktoon. The first new Nicktoon of the decade was Planet Sheen, a super unnecessary spin-off to Jimmy Neutron. This spin-off was not well liked. Making side characters the main characters is usually a poor decision unless you're Saul Goodman. Sheen became overly annoying, the plots were too bizarre, in a bad way, and visually, the show wasn't the best thing Nick had to offer. Going back to the humor, it was definitely different. It wasn't like Jimmy Neutron. It was reminiscent of Fanboy and Chum Chum. The ratings gave validity to these claims, and Nickelodeon canceled the show after one season. The next Nicktoon was Tough Puppy. Being that it was created by Butch Hartman, the same guy that did Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom, it couldn't have been all bad, right? Well, it wasn't, but you could definitely tell the shows were losing soul. I don't know how else to describe it than that. I get that I'm here to articulate my point with words, but this show feels like you took Fairly Odd Parents, drained the soul from it, and slapped on a spy theme. The next two shows are Winx Club and The Legend of Korra. They do...
Hey, man. Winx Club and Legend of Korra were Bob stole. Again, I forgot they were Nickelodeon shows. They were Bob stole.
Not fit into the category of terrible. They are the very few diamonds in the rough of this
decade.
Robot and Monster is the next show, and it just brings more of the same. The show feels very empty, content-wise and visually. The humor this time isn't so much farting, but beating each other up and name-calling. There's nothing wrong with that humor, as it's probably the most common type of humor, but to have every joke based on it gets boring very fast. The 2012 TMNT is an all-around fine show. It gets the job done. I don't have any strong opinions on it. Sanjay and Craig are guilty of being one of the worst on the network. I could make the argument that it is worse than Fanboy and Chum Chum. It's probably not, but it's very close. It relies only on fart humor. It's like you took the worst quality out of all the popular shows at the time and put it into one to make this show. It is just another show where a human and a non-human best friend duo go on really wacky adventures. Another thing this show has in common with all of the others that come after it is its hyperactivity. Fanboy and Chum Chum had it along with Tough Puppy, but it is right in your face with this show. Surely, this show is as bad as it gets.
What is this?
Nickelodeon really said, let's take Sanjay and Craig and make it 100 times worse. This show is complete brain rot humor, if you can even call it humor. There are no real stories for episodes, just recycled junk you have seen before. Annoying characters. So much stuff to do with butts. It is absolutely unreal how this was created, and then continued to be created. Look on the bright side. Breadwinners is the worst this decade gets. Harvey Beaks was a breath of fresh air. And then Pig, Goat, Banana, and Cricket released, and you were right back into the mud. More hyperactive, over-exaggerated animation slop. The Loud House is next, and as it is still running to this day, it has proven to be a much better show than the others, even though I would argue the fart jokes and hyperactivity is definitely still present. Bunsen is a Beast, the fourth show by Butch Hartman, proved that it was more of what this decade has churned out. Yet again, a buddy duo where one is non-human, and they go on way too wacky of adventures. Welcome to Wayne. It seems better than most. I can't give any personal anecdote as I've never seen this one. Online, the most common criticism is that it is a Gravity Falls ripoff. 2 days after Welcome to Wayne aired, Fairly Odd Parents was canceled. This now left SpongeBob and... well, nothing else, really. At this point, no show besides SpongeBob had been airing for longer than a year or so. And
they remade Fairly Odd Parents, though, right? They brought it back? I could have swore they brought it back? I don't know if it still is good, but I feel like I saw something where they decided they wanted to give it another go. It's not as good this time around? Man, oh man. They might have just lost the soul in the show, man. Good old Timmy. Good old Timmy Turner.
Cash Cow SpongeBob was getting worse and worse. Hang on. Yeah, let me talk about that in a second.
SpongeBob overrated, realistically, if we're really talking about it.
There are 4 Nicktoons left of the decade. Only one of them still falls into the hyperactive poop humor category. The other 3 are reboots or spin-offs. This is the exact trend repeating itself. Let me explain. At the end of the 2000s, Fanboy and Chum Chum introduced the poop humor, and it continued all throughout the decade. Now these 3 shows, The Adventures of Kid Danger, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Casa Grandes are all spin-offs and reboots. Now look at the 2020s so far. Almost 70% of the shows in the decade thus far are spin-offs, reboots, and licensed shows. It seems as if at the end of the decade they introduce shows that are indicative of what is to come in the following decade.
SpongeBob's decline.
Okay, Now the decline of SpongeBob. It's been talked about endlessly. They say it got bad after the first movie. Whatever. I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm here to say at this point SpongeBob was arguably just bad. Look up the worst episodes of SpongeBob. No, I'll do it for you. The consensus is that A Pal for Gary is the worst. SpongeBob gets a new pet, and it tries to eat Gary. They literally rewrite SpongeBob to be dumber than usual to make the story work. Another terrible episode is One Course Meal, the episode where Mr. Krabs tortures and abuses Plankton, which is pretty out of character for Mr. Krabs. What's my point with this? These episodes came out in 2010. Most of the worst episodes came out in this decade, so not only were their new shows bad, but their legacy shows were too.
Live action oversaturation.
Another point is the oversaturation of live action shows. 29 live action shows premiered in this decade, but that's not all. There were other shows that didn't premiere in the 2010s.
When did iCarly? When did iCarly? When was iCarly on TV? First episode, 2007. Okay. Now how many seasons did it have? 5 seasons. So it went around until 2012, 2013. Okay.
But we're still airing new episodes, making the total 33. That's a lot of shows. Some of them aren't that bad. I mean, they're sitcoms with children lead actors. They can't be that good either. But some of them are especially heinous.
Oh, God.
Fred the Show.
Yeah, you should have
I can't fairly talk ill of all these shows because I have close to no knowledge about them. I only watched cartoons growing up, but all you need to do is look at the numbers. 33 shows running in a span of 10 years. It has to get watered down.
The reality shows just can't do it like Disney. Disney, the go of they're the go of live action, the live action kid shows, bro. Disney's the go. They run that shit. No one can take it away from Disney, dude. They're able to bang it out and bam it out and replicate it and make another good one and another. Like, you have Hannah Montana. You have That's So Raven. You have Wizards of Waverly Place. And then you're like, nah, there can't be anybody bigger than that, right? And then you get Good Luck Charlie. And then you get, what? Sweet Life of Zack and Cody on deck. And then you get, shit. What else is after that? Shake It Up. Like, they just don't stop. They're good, man. They're really good.
It has to. I know the animation studio is probably completely separate from the live action studio, with completely different budgets and everything, but I really wish more effort would have been spent on the cartoon side rather than live action. You can clearly tell where Nickelodeon's focus went into this decade, and I believe this is a small contributing factor as to why the cartoons were so bad. Why did they cling to this type of humor? What made them think it was successful and funny? I can't tell you that. The only reason I can hypothesize, and it's a stretch, a long stretch, is for shock value. YouTube was becoming very successful and popular in the early 2010s, and by the mid-2010s was huge. The network saw this huge shift in viewership, where the kids, instead of watching cartoons, were watching their favorite YouTubers play video games, or vlogging or what have you. I'm guessing maybe this was their attempt to catch people's eyes and be like, look at us. We have this crazy, wacky, over-exaggerated junk. Look, I know that's not a very good reason, but I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. I can't think of any other reason why any executive in their right mind would approve the poop humor.
Was going to be better than Dan TDM
into the 2020s.
Or PewDiePie.
The poop humor shows are definitely decreasing in quantity. However, they are just being replaced with reboots, spin-offs, and other licensed IPs. We're definitely in a reboot era right now. Everyone is doing it. And there aren't tons of unique new movies or shows. It only makes sense that Nickelodeon follows suit. Make sure you check out my other videos. I have quite a few about Nickelodeon and other cartoons. If you could please subscribe. I'm literally so close to 1,000 subscribers, and you hitting that button will help me greatly.
We're at 12K now.
Thank you for watching.
Good stuff. Yeah. I don't think Nick coming back on the cartoons, bro. I think Cartoon Network is just gonna run cartoons from now on. Disney Channel is gonna run live action kids sitcoms. Nickelodeon, without feet, they're nothing. That's it, dude. Without feet, Nickelodeon is nothing, dude. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know. They're nothing, man. What do you think of SpongeBob? Not a fan. Not a fan. I've never been a SpongeBob fan, bro. They're pretty okay shows on Disney XD. Yeah, Disney XD was also great too, though. Disney they just had that in the bag, I think. Yo, Bucket, my day's well, man. How are you? Ducky, don't lie to me. iCarly was only good because the hype. No, iCarly was a genuinely good show. Fuck the hype. When I was that young, I didn't know anything about the hype around the show. I just saw the show and I liked it. That was it. Niggas weren't really in school saying, "Oh, iCarly, iCarly." Like that was kind of a guilty pleasure. Those type of shows you didn't talk about. iCarly, Hannah Montana, you didn't talk about them. You just watched them and never said anything. And Montana was fire. iCarly was fire. Victorious was fire. Yeah. I mean, if we're going to Cartoon Network, it's best in its prime. Because Cartoon Network also had Toonami, right? So you'd get a fantastic lineup, right, of cartoons. And then it'd be like, Tsunami time. And it'd get even better. Like, what? I'm watching Dragon Ball Z now? I'm watching Inuyasha now? Or that might have been Adult Swim. But, it was like, fuck. it was a banger. Don't lie. Cartoon Network is cooked. Cartoon Network, I haven't seen any show since. Here's where I stopped watching Cartoon Network. I genuinely remember. I watched TV all the time, but we lost cable for a while. Like, we just didn't have cable. We were just like, can't afford it, so we're just gonna have internet, no cable. And then, however, we did get cable back, and I was like, all right. I think I was like 12, 13. So I switched to Cartoon Network, and I see Chowder. I see fucking Chowder. And I'm like, what is this? So I start watching it, and it just threw me out the door, bro. I was like, yeah, I'm not watching this anymore. I'm done. I'm done, dude. I don't want to see this shit. Yeah, Cartoon Network just had the best lineup though, from the network itself to Toonami, and then leading into, you're right, Adult Swim. Like, come on. What a lineup, dude. What a lineup. Who's gonna beat that? Nobody. Nick at Night was just like, only thing I was watching on that is fucking Fresh Prince and George Lopez. Old Ben 10 is peak, yeah, for sure. Ben 10 peak, Teen Titans peak. All those were peak, man. On it, and it, and it, I get on it, and even like old Ben 10 and when he became a teenager was still peak. It was still peak. All of that was peak, man. I was so good. Omniverse, I've never seen. That's the new one with the different animation, right? What else was fire? Totally Spies. Oh my god, a guilty pleasure, man. If we want to talk about Cartoon Network guilty pleasures, man, man, I was all up on that. What else was there? I don't remember, but they just had heat, man. Samurai. I wasn't a big Samurai Jack fan, but I know it was people who watched